looking at the market reaction, markets are doing cartwheels, and Mahindra stock is up 8%. Perhaps everyone is excited about the farm outlay and the fact that this is going to be an expansionary budget with real focus on growth. What would be the right word, Mr. Goenka, to describe this year's budget? Hope or growth?
I would say it's a budget with the head and the heart in the right place. And this is kind of what the industry was hoping for, which will be a growth-oriented budget. And that's what the finance minister has delivered, with emphasis on healthcare sector and infrastructure. And they're the two biggest enablers that we were looking forward to.
Okay. How excited and delighted you are that there are no changes in the direct tax? I mean, this was a time when clearly the finance minister, if they would have, made a demand for higher COVID cess or some surcharge, that could have been easily absorbed and it would have been easily understood in a pandemic year. But no, she did not decide to change that.
I think it was, in my opinion, prudent thing to do, not to put any fresh tax burden on taxpayers, because right now many people are in fact affected in terms of lower income for a variety of reasons. Some people have lost their jobs also, unfortunately, and therefore at this time to increase taxes on any segment of the population would probably have been a big negative and would have really hurt the sentiment. So I would say it's actually a bold move on the part of the finance minister not to increase any taxes, at least not to increase any direct taxes. And indirect taxes, there's some little tinkering here and there, but there is no major increase in indirect taxes either. So I would consider this a very good and a very bold move by the finance minister.
One concern has been the excise duty on fuel, which is petrol and diesel, and in this budget also a additional cess has come. That is something which is slightly annoying, that government is taxing what is easy for them to tax.
Well, that is of course always the case, that every government does what's easy to do. But having said that, we need to look at the fine print, because the FM did make a statement that the way the cess is going to be increased, it's not going to have an impact on the consumers. So I do not know if there's an offsetting of the cess that is being done somehow. We are still trying to read the fine print. I would be surprised if the cess of $4 or 2.5 rupees will completely get passed on to the consumer, because that will be a very big burden and would have, in fact, we were hoping that the excise duty will go down on petroleum products because of very high prices right now. So we'll have to watch the fine print there. But that's one concern, because when I look at the tickers that are coming on TV about the various agricultural cess amount, they appear to be very large. And we'll have to see what that leads to.
Mr. Goenka, there also is a rejig in import duties. Now a free market economist would say that increasing in import duties and custom duties is challenging. You are in a global competitive environment and you can only protect your industry to a certain level. As an ideology, was that a good idea in this budget? Because duty rejigs have happened.
Well, I would, as first of all, I agree, and I have said this many times, that I am not very excited about protecting the local industry by increasing a tariff on incoming, because that does not make the industry competitive. And if we really want to become export worthy, we have to become competitive, and that won't happen if we increase the import duty. So as a general principle, I agree with that. However, if you look at what has been done, I think it's very focused and only on a few items. And there must be a good reason why these items have been touched. In fact, for steel, duty has been reduced from 15% to 7.5%, it seems. So it's a bit of balancing that has been done. And I don't think that one should see it as a large-scale increase in import duty. One should see it as a very specific intervention for variety of reasons, and obviously we won't know all the reasons why these particular goods were picked for duty increase. Like auto parts, increase of 15% to 15%. that appears to be a fairly severe increase. Again, we'll have to see the fine print as to, because currently the duty is 7.5%, 10% on most parts. And if it is going to 15% for all the parts, that would have a significant impact on the pricing of automotive products. So we'll have to again see the fine print as to where the 15% applies. But I don't think that it's a large scale increase in import duty.
Do you think the disinvestment target and other assumptions of tax growth, are they conservative, realistic, or aggressive?
I think the math seems to be working reasonably well. In the first cut, our experts have done quick math, and that seems to be working reasonably well. To talk about 6.8% fiscal deficit, I think is, I would say, a conservative number, because depending on what growth we get, and this growth-oriented budget probably will give us a little bit more growth than what we may have planned for. So 6.8%, I would say, is slightly conservative. Certainly not. Sorry, slightly. It's realistic to slightly conservative. I don't expect it to be higher than 6.8. And when it comes to disinvestment target of 1.75 lakh crore, given the kind of strategic direction that the FM has talked about, of completing all the disinvestments that have been started in the next this financial year, I think she said, plus talking about two banks, PSU banks and general insurance company. I think 1.75 lakh crore appears to be low. Maybe she's counting for the fact that in spite of the best intent, they may not be able to achieve all the disinvestment during this year, and therefore taking conservative number of 1.75 lakh crore. So I would say that overall, if I look at the math, and unless we have some kind of external calamity that affects us, we should be able to achieve this budget or maybe even do slightly better.
Closing comments, Mr. Goenka, and this is not about the budget assumption. I'm just trying to bring a very simple fact out that a pro-growth budget in an economy like India always will bring inflation back. Bond yields we know have already gone up. They're unlikely to come down now with this kind of fiscal deficit number. So what we are taking for granted, this budget may actually hit us there, which is interest rates.
Well, I think, again, one has to prioritize. I mean, there are multiple sort of requirements that one would have in any budget or any economy. One of growth, inflation, interest rate, employment, investment, all of these. And one has to prioritize at a given point of time. And I think nobody will doubt that today, nobody will question today, the number one priority has to be growth. And that's what the budget is focused on. And clearly, to get growth, there will be certain areas where one may not get the kind of results that one would looking for. But then again, there's next year when we come back. So if we get the 11-12% GDP growth this year, then I think we'll be in pretty good shape in FY23 to correct for what had to be compromised with to get the growth of 11-12%. And I think all of us, even in a personal finances, in a company budget, we all have to make these choices always. And same thing applies for a country's budget.
Okay, I'm just tempted to ask you one more question. I'll take the liberty of extending my appointment by another exactly a minute. The idea of getting development finance back. Now, this is an idea which in the past has not worked. I'm not getting into the name of the institutions, but institutions who were in development finance or who were financing the infrastructure space, in a sense, had a rough time. Is that an old idea coming back in a new avatar, or a failed idea coming back again?
So I'm not an expert in this area, so I don't have much of an insight. But what I would like to say is that there were reasons why it didn't work the last time. And I'm sure that those learnings that comes from last time's not such a good experience will be incorporated in the new attempt. And we always have to try things again. I mean, something that doesn't work once doesn't mean that it will never work again. And we have to try old ideas with new inputs, with new initiatives, with new direction again. Otherwise, one failure should not mean that some idea is completely dumped forever. And therefore, I think that it's clearly a good thing, assuming that the learning from last time is going to help us to make it successful. Clearly, the ARC is a very big expectation that the industry had of the so-called bad bank. That would help tremendously in terms of getting our banking system in line.
All right, Mr. Goenka, I really appreciate your time.